Welcome back here, the whole 9 yards here on a Monday night. Did not record Sunday night just because the weather delay. But Brandon, how's it going?
Uh, Good. You came over for Sunday games yesterday, so that was I guess we watched the Pats game. Um, I went upstairs to watch the Cowboys game, but yeah, that was I will talk. You'll talk about the Pats game later in the week, but I guess just quickly, I mean that was definitely a dicey game. Probably you. I mean, I was looking at your reactions to some of that stuff. I mean, they probably should have lost to be honest, but I mean, they won, so that's all that really matters. But definitely not the most encouraging game for the Pats there.
Yeah, like a quick one statement, one sentence thing is we should have lost that. The Texans gave the game away. Yeah, I'll talk more about it in the Patriots episode, but I guess we'll talk about Sunday night because that was a game where I think many people predicted Bills in what could be a blowout. I think that's what your opinion was. I don't want to bet against Mahomes. At some point, I think this Chiefs team's going to hit their form. Why not week five? And the Chiefs essentially got blown out. It was never competitive the whole night. There were times when you thought, all right, maybe the Chiefs can get something going, but whether it be the pick that Mahomes threw in the goal line that one drive or just the defense not being able to stop a nosebleed, the Bills just ran away with the game. In Arrowhead with the weather delay, Allen looked great, scored 38 points. You only have to throw 26 passes, rushed for a touchdown. Dawson Knox had a big night. Looks like a new weapon for the Bills. But honestly, I think this game says, like, I don't know whether or not. I mean, what's your opinion? Do you think this game says more about the Bills being a top team slash the top team or more about the Chiefs being just not as good as people think they are?
Well, I think the Bills have. I've always at least viewed the Bills as a top team. I know you've at least been a little bit more down on them, but I've always viewed them as a top team, not just the AFC but the NFL. So I'm not really looking at the Bills here. I'm more so looking at the Chiefs. I mean, we've talked about their defense for a couple of weeks now, saying that when it gets to the postseason, it'll get better. And I still hold faith on that, but it's looked really bad so far. I mean, they just got. I mean, the Bills had no problem going up and down the field, but honestly, the offense for the Chiefs last night, if you look at their scoring drives, I mean, first drive, 17 plays to go score for them. I mean, like you're just expecting Kansas City to get, less than 8 plays usually because you're just hitting you're hitting Tyreek deep, you're getting Kelsey for 20 yards, you're getting chunk plays. So 17 plays. These are just the scoring drives, by the way. 17 plays, 12 plays, 8 plays, but that was like a kind of like a 2 minute drill right before the half. Um, a 7 play drive, but again, 2.5 minutes on that. And then all the other drives were either punt or turnovers. So it just wasn't, it wasn't a Chiefs game at all. Mahomes looked really bad. That maybe the weather delayed something at halftime. I mean, it was 24-13 going at the half. Maybe they did force the Bills to punt first drive, second half, but it was just a really bad game for them. And you know what? They're 2-3. The Chargers are 4-1. They already have a game up on them. So we'll see. We thought this division was definitely going to be tough, but we still thought the Chiefs would, have 14, 13 wins. It's going to be tough for them to get to 13 wins, 14 wins.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much well, not impossible, but they'd have to go undefeated now to get to 14
Yeah.
wins. Offensively for the Chiefs, I'm still not worried. I mean, I've heard some people saying, the new game plan is out on the Chiefs where you just essentially double team Tyreek Hill. You have one guy glued onto him the whole game with the safety over the top, and then Kelsey, you just admit the fact that he's going to get his plays. That's been the strategy for the past 2.5, 3 years now. And even then, they still find ways to score, and Tyreek still finds ways to get open. So I don't think a strategy that simple or a method that simple is just like the new way to guard. I mean, that's what I would do, but I don't think that's like guaranteed to just, for Mahomes to go 33 at 54, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks every time. That's just, I have faith in this offense that it's going to get back to normal. I mean, it looked better against the Eagles. I know the Eagles are the Eagles, but I have faith in this offense that it's going to be the best in the league going forward, at least in the postseason. By the time we get there next week, I don't know. It may take some time for them to start gelling again, but defensively, I still think that's where the questions are. You just have to get better. I know you missed Chris Jones, but the pass rush last night was awful. Frank Clark, I don't think you can look at that trade now and just start to question it. and everywhere on the defense, you just don't have a lot of special. I mean, it's Matthew and it's Chris Jones, and other than that, it's a bunch of just meh. You missed your starting corner last night as well, but I frankly, I'm not sure that really makes much of a difference. So yeah, the defense just has to get better. But if it does get better, I'm betting on the fact it will get better. I still think this is one of the best, if not the best team in the league. So yeah.
One thing I'll say about the Frank Clark trade, I mean, if you look at D Ford's numbers, I mean, he hasn't been anything either. So, I think that maybe he's better if he's on the Chiefs or something. And, there's always that argument as well. But, he played 11 games 2019, one game last year. He's played 5 games so far this year, but he hasn't had any stats at all. So I don't know,
Yeah, I wasn't a D Ford person either, but it's not like you had to make that trade. You could have looked somewhere else. So
yeah,
it's not like D Ford wasn't an asset at all.
But this team definitely does. It's a little concerning just how bad they've looked. But again, in the last 3 years, they've been easily the best team in the NFL. So I guess we'll see when they get to the playoffs. Because again, they'll still make the playoffs. Not really worried about that. They get Washington next week, then Tennessee, then New York. So you're expecting 3 wins there, to be honest. I'd be surprised if they don't end up 5-3 when they go face the Packers, after the Giants. So we'll see. But again, if they're even 4-3, or 4-4 after those 3 games, it's still 4-4 after 8 weeks. No matter how good you are or how bad you are, it's going to be tough for you to get to 10, 11 wins, even with how good the Chiefs can be.
Yeah, no, for sure. So as far as the Bills, though, I mean, do you have them as the number 1 team right now, or?
Well, yeah, I think a lot of people after last night's game have kind of solidified the Bills as the best team. At least in the AFC, I guess we'll have to see what the NFC looks like, but maybe even the NFL, honestly. I think in the AFC, it's definitely still between them and the Chiefs. It's hard not to say the Bills are better than the Chiefs right now. Maybe overall the Chiefs are better, but I think right now the Bills are better. And, Allen definitely started pretty slow, and they had a couple easy opponents the last couple weeks. But, this was a statement win, in Kansas City. Like you said, they just dominated the entire game, defensively, offensively. They had no answer for him. So, yeah, I would say right now the Bills, they probably are the best team in the AFC right now.
Yeah, right now I would agree. I think if the playoffs started tomorrow, I think the Chiefs would be 100% the favorites to come out of the AFC. With that being said, though, if I'm picking my AFC Super Bowl guy or team right now, I still think I go with the Chiefs. I mean, I guess not still, but they're still my favorite at least. I know they just lost to the Bills by 18 points, but we're in week 5, and I think the reality is that maybe they make a trade acquisition for the deadline, or maybe they just have an extra from now on 12 more games or 13 more games, whatever, to get better as a team. I still have more faith in. I still prefer Mahomes and Reed than I do Allen and McDermott. I still like the Chiefs offense much more than the Bills offense. And defensively, I have faith that the Chiefs defense can return to what it has been in recent years, which is we're going to give up our plays. We're not a great defense, but we can be middle of the pack, maybe 20th best defense in the league. But what we do is we create turnovers, we create plays, and we have a couple moments in a couple big games that really just kind of swing the momentum of the game. And I think the Chiefs defense can be that, especially when you do have Matthew and Jones. And if Frank Clark can start being what you would hope he would be, maybe a couple other guys on the defense start playing well, Sorensen or something makes a couple plays in the playoffs. I think that's the type of defense you're hoping for if you're a Chiefs fan. And I think it will come eventually.
Yeah, that's definitely like their ceiling, I would say, is a middle of the pack defense that when you get to the postseason gets better, but a middle of the pack defense that can at least cause turnovers, but they're not doing that. They're just playing I don't exactly know what they rank defensively right now, but it has to be bottom 5. I don't really think they're causing those turnovers like at least they were in the past. So yeah, a lot of stuff has to flip. We'll see. I mean, Spagnuolo is the defensive coordinator. It's been the last couple of years. We'll see what happens. If he tries to scheme different, he tries to change the scheme, or maybe if they just keep being really bad, maybe a change happens. I'd be surprised. But yeah, they definitely have a lot of questions to answer. But like I said, they have 3 games that aren't easy, but if you're the Chiefs and you are the team that you think you are, you should win those 3 games, even with I think all 3 of them are on the road. I know at least Washington and Tennessee are. I would assume New York would be, considering you're kind of already on the East Coast there. Yeah, no, they're actually home against the Giants. So even no matter what, they're going to beat them. But yeah, I mean, those are 3 games you should win. You should be 5-3 going to face the Packers.
I will say if they do lose to Washington next week, though, that would be insane. Imagine the Chiefs being 2-4 to start the year. I mean, that's just, I know they're 2-3,
Yeah.
which is already shocking, but like 2-4, you're at the point where like you're genuinely doubting if you can make the playoffs. So that's a big hole to climb out of,
I mean,
especially in this AFC.
Yeah, at that point, you basically have to win out. 2-4, you have 11 games left, right? So I mean, you have to at least go 9-2 at that point. So, and then again, if the Chargers keep continuing to do what they're doing, maybe they win the division, and then you're looking at a wild card spot. And like again, there are 3 wild card spots, but you do have to look at that. The Bills are going to be there, Ravens, Browns, I should say. Well, and we'll talk about the game probably next, but the Bengals, if they continue, possibly if the Colts get better, we'll see. But yeah, they may be looking at a wild card spot if they do lose next week or even lose one of these next 3 games.
Next game we'll talk about is Browns at Chargers. Like you just said, quite just a shootout type of game. It was a game that I didn't watch as much as some other games in that time window, but the Chargers ended up pulling out the dub. Herbert looked absolutely just insane. First take on that game. What does it mean for the AFC race? How do you view these teams now?
For the entire AFC, you mean?
Yeah, like what are your first reactions from this game?
Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't get to watch this game really either because of the Cowboy game, which sucked. But I think this does prove that the Chargers are one of the better teams in the AFC. I mean, you beat the Chiefs and then you beat the Browns. I would say the Browns are definitely one of those top 5 teams in the AFC. Obviously, the Chiefs are, even with the record. So yeah, the Chargers. This was definitely another statement win. Herbert is clearly an MVP type guy. He's going to be a top. He's on the cusp of being like a top 7, top 6 quarterback. He's obviously with Wilson being injured as well. So yeah, I think that even though the Browns lost, I thought they played really well. Again, that defense, they got shredded in the fourth quarter, 26 points in the fourth quarter. That's obviously unacceptable, but Baker looked really good. The running attack was there. Odell had a huge drop on 4th down that cost them. They had a couple missed opportunities that could have won them the game, but you got to give the Chargers credit. Score 26 points in the fourth quarter to come back like that in a shootout type game. That was really impressive. So I think I still have my hopes high with the Browns, but the Chargers are definitely making noise. But again, we'll see. They're still a young team. Herbert's still only his 2nd year. Staley's in his 1st year, so they'll probably make mistakes as well. But I'm still encouraged by the Browns, even though they did lose this game. We'll see what happens with the game tonight with the Ravens. The Ravens can move to 4-1 with the win, so we'll see. But I'm still encouraged by the Browns.
Yeah, I don't think this game really tells me that much that I didn't already know. The Browns and the Chargers are both very talented rosters, and I think they proved that. Mike Williams, I think maybe proved a little bit to me as a guy who can, assuming he can be healthy, is a legitimate number 1 as well, with already having Keenan Allen. So you pretty much could have 2 number 1s if that's the case, on top of Eckler. So I think that's big. But the bottom line for me is that both of these teams are teams that I don't need to see stuff from week 5 for them to prove me anything. What I need to see is stuff from both of these teams in December, January, and then hopefully if they could ever make it February. Herbert is, you're right, on the cusp of being that top 5 quarterback guy. He might already be there. He might already be top 5. He's been a top 5 quarterback so far, but I think we were kind of expecting that from Herbert. I'd like to see, I'm assuming Herbert will only get better as the year goes on. He's not a small quarterback with, a weak arm or anything. He's not a guy like a Brees who may go out and play worse in a place like, not Lambeau because he's in the AFC, but maybe Arrowhead in December. Like I don't see Herbert being a guy that's going to get worse in that type of environment. But the Chargers are known for just, frankly, just choking in high pressure moments when it's past, week 15 of the regular season. So I think that's kind of what I want to see. Is Staley being a rookie going to come back to bite them? I don't know. I'm not sure how good of a game manager he is as a head coach just quite yet. Obviously, winning any close game is huge, but I'd like to see that. And as far as the Browns are concerned, they've looked great so far these first 5 weeks. You could legitimately argue they should be 5-0 right now. But the bottom line is they're 3-2, and they're still in a tight division race with the Ravens. And they lost the two teams they've lost to are arguably the two of the top four teams in the AFC.
Yep.
And I think that is big to say that. They could arguably be 5-0, but they're 3-2 right now. You could argue they could be 2-3. They could argue they could be 5-0. I just want to see some consistency. You can take a loss like this, but let's see some consistent play from Baker that proves he should be getting a big contract extension. Let's see this consistent play down in December. I'd like to see Baker be able to be as good as he was on Sunday as he, could be bet down in December. So we'll see what happens. But I think both of these teams are legitimate top 5 teams. It just comes down to, can they be consistent and can they perform in December?
Yeah. And the Browns have a tough one next week. They're against the Cardinals, who are 5-0. So, they could be 3-3. And, I would still probably, even if they were to lose next week, obviously it's concerning that they're 3-3. But again, that's, if your 3 losses are to an undefeated team, the Chiefs and the Chargers, who are 4-1 right now, and then whoever they play next week, I would assume that they'd win that game. They play the Ravens, obviously a really tough game there. So still, you would have lost to 3 of the better teams in the NFL overall. You obviously need to win some of those games, but if I still would be encouraged, even if they had a tough loss against the Cardinals next week.
Sure. Yeah.
But that was probably the best game overall, probably from this week. I guess maybe the next most thrilling game was probably the Packers-Bengals, just because of what was happening at the end of the game. We both picked this game. We'll probably do our picks. We'll probably talk about our picks, right? When we're done talking about the games we want to talk about. But we both picked this game for the Packers -3, and it seemed like a lock again. When we both talked about it, we both agreed. We both agreed exactly on what we were talking about, which was Packers are going to come in. Bengals team that's been good, but they're still young and they're probably not as good as the record is showing. And the Packers are going to come in and just smash them. That was not the case. They had a big day offensively. Rodgers had a pretty good game. Devontae Adams had over 200 yards receiving, but it was just the miss. There was 5 or 6 missed kicks in the last 2 minutes of the game. It wasn't even the overall game, just the last 2 minutes. There was 5 missed kicks. They easily could have lost the game. They could have. They should have won the game to begin with, but they could have lost the game multiple times. Crosby, who's usually clutch in those situations, missed 3 kicks. We were watching. That's what the game we were watching right at the end. It was just a crazy sequence of events. And the craziest thing was, and we talked about it, was the Bengals not going for it on 4th down when they kicked the 49-yard field goal that they missed, and the kicker thought it went in. It was 4th and 1, and we thought they should have went for it because you already missed. There's already been a couple missed kicks. It's not a guaranteed kick. It's not like you're 30 yards in, you're 49 yards out. That was definitely a perplexing decision from Zach Taylor. But yeah, I think the better team and the right team still won the game, but it was definitely a crazy sequence of events.
Yeah, I think looking back on it, I definitely did want them to go for it. I don't think it's an egregious decision they went for the kick. It's a 49-yarder is a lot more different than, a 55-yarder or whatever. But I still think they should have gone for it. Obviously, hindsight's 2020. He missed the kick, but I just think it's a tough spot to put. I think he's a rookie kicker in, essentially a guy who hasn't proven anything. I would have tried to just get 1 yard and just guarantee yourself the game, give him a 35-yard chip shot and call it a day. Obviously, hindsight's 2020. I don't think it's a fireable offense. Obviously, it's not a fireable offense. You're 3-2 as the Bengals, who are expected to be 1-4. But yeah, I would have gone for it there. But that was definitely a really good game. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess nothing really much else to say from that. It was just kind of the ending sequence of there. But
what do you think of the Bengals though? Do you view them now do you view them having a legitimate shot as a wild card team, or do you still view them as being 8-9 to end the year, 7-10?
Well, I think they'll probably, again, you already have 3 wins, so it's tough not to finish probably above 5, 5, 6 wins, maybe that 7-win mark, just seeing who they play and stuff. But, you look at the AFC right now, you got Chargers, Bills, Ravens, this is based off record, Titans, and then you have the Bengals, but you have teams obviously like Kansas City, Cleveland's also 3-2. If the Colts could, somewhat pick it up, a win tonight would be huge for them to get to 2-3. So, there's definitely teams that I should be above them and probably are above them. So I think a wild card's probably out of their path. But if Burrow really turns into like this, a top quarterback, like a Herbert type quarterback, and I think Burrow can get there. But the way Herbert's playing, possibly. But this team is definitely not as talented nor as good as the Chargers are. So I'd be surprised. I think they're probably looking at like a 6-win, maybe 7-win, but I think like a 6-win. I think 6 wins is solid for this team. Yeah, 7 wins, 8 wins. I think that's really solid for this team, considering just they're not that good, to be honest.
Yeah, I have this team exactly in the same spot as where I have like the Carolina Panthers, maybe a little bit slightly worse. I think this team could be 7. They could get to 8 wins. I mean, they could. I don't know that I bet on it, but they could. But they're going to be a team that should compete in almost every game, and that's essentially what they've done so far. First game, the one against the Vikings by 3. They lost to the Bears by 3. The Steelers game was kind of like the exception to the rule. They beat the Steelers by 14, beat the Jaguars by 3, and then lose to the Packers by 3. They're going to be competitive in every single game, but they're arguably pretty lucky to be 3-2 right now. I think many people would still have the Steelers as a better team than the Bengals, even though the Bengals beat the Steelers. I don't know that I would or wouldn't, but their schedule is only going to get tougher. I mean, the Packers is just kind of the start of it. They play the Ravens. Obviously, they play the Browns. Obviously, they play the 49ers, Chargers, Broncos, Ravens again, Chiefs. Like
their end of schedule, they go Chargers, Niners, Broncos, Ravens, Chiefs, Browns. I mean, those last 6 games, you're going to be lucky if you go 2-4. You'll probably go 1-5, with the Broncos being the exception there. But that's a brutal end to the schedule. Even if you're looking at like 5, 6 wins before that, I mean, you'll be lucky. Like I said, you'll be lucky to win 2 games and probably 1 game.
Yeah, no, I would agree. But I still think this team should compete in every single game. And I think that's what you're hoping for. Yeah. If this team can go like 6-11, 7-10, I think you're in a super gray area on what you do with Zach Taylor, because he's obviously failed the past season or 2 or whatever. But he really hasn't had much at all. Obviously with Burrow going down last year. And if you go, let's just say you go 7-10, I mean, that's a super gray area, because there's going to be times when he looks solid and then times when he looks bad. Would you fire him if you go 7-10? I don't know. It's a question that I think you'd have to watch the games and see what happens, but
yeah, I think exactly that. I think that I don't love him as a coach. I think that you probably be better off, you go 7-10, or really, even if you go 6-11, but you have really good games. Do you go to that other coach that brings you to the next level? I think that's obviously the other, view on that. And I think that's probably the right choice to get to that coach. Again, you have to see what the coaching options are, obviously. But I don't think Taylor's probably that type of guy. For this team, really, even as a head coach, I think he's good. He's not great. I think he's like kind of that bridge coach that takes your team to that level, and then another coach brings you up. But I think really, the question I had, again, after this game, another huge game from Jamar Chase, were you a Chase guy or a Sewell guy? I forget what side you were on in that discussion.
I think I was very just. No, I wasn't. I don't think I really took much of a side, because I didn't hate either prospect, and I think that those are both areas. Obviously, the Bengals have receivers, but none of them are like clear-cut number ones. Higgins, Boyd are both, to me, more number 2s, maybe number 3s, arguably. So I don't know. I mean, right now it looks like Jamar Chase was the right call, but. Yeah. I mean, it's only been 5 weeks, so it still is tough to tell.
Yeah, because, you see a lot of stuff. Like, Sewell's played really well also. Obviously just alignments, you don't really think about it. But, yeah, I mean, Chase has definitely surprised me. I didn't think he'd, be this good. Again, it's only 5 weeks. He could easily struggle, for the next couple games. But he definitely looks pretty good. It's hard to put up numbers like this and then, just put up, zeros for the rest of the season. So, we'll see. But again, they still need to fix that offensive line. Once they do that, and you probably get the right coach, and then obviously a couple defensive pieces, yeah, they're going to be on their way to being one of the top teams. But that's another 2 years, I would say. And then at that point, yeah, Burrow's in the league for a couple years. You have Chase already set. We'll see with Mixon, but at that point, you'll have a pretty good team in about 2 years. I would say. I would say 2 years are probably, going to be competing for that division.
Who would you rather have for the rest of their careers, Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson?
Ooh, I mean, we've already seen a year of Jefferson, so it's tough not to pick him. But I think Chase is. I was going to say Chase is probably the more electric player, but I mean Jefferson's pretty electric as well. I mean, like I thought he'd be a little bit down this year, but he's been pretty good. I think he's been a little more quiet than last year. I don't think people are giving him as much attention, but he's been pretty good. I guess I go Chase. I don't know. I think it's honestly a flip of the coin. I don't think you're mad at whoever you get if you get Jefferson or Chase.
I think Chase is the more physically dominating receiver. I think he just has a bigger stature. But my answer to that would be whoever just has the like quieter personality and like smaller ego. Because I mean, my take on receivers is like you can be as good as you want. If your personality is a detriment to the locker room, then you're pretty much worthless. I think Odell is a pretty good example of that. Obviously now he's not even nearly as good to justify what his ego was before, but even when he was a top receiver, the second he kind of just had that big ego, his talent kind of just went down the drain to me. And I think if you look at a lot of the receivers, that's kind of the case. Like a guy like Julio and a guy like Larry Fitz and those types of guys are hard to find. They're harder to find than it is to find like a good receiver with a big ego. So my answer would be whoever has the smaller ego, genuinely, because I think both of these guys are pretty close. I think Jamar Chase might have the higher peak. He just is bigger. He's stronger, but yeah.
I think it does help that at least for Chase, he plays in Cincinnati. So it's like, even if you do have a big ego and I guess technically markets don't technically matter anymore, but like, if he was in New York or something and he did have somewhat of an ego, and I don't even know if he does, but it would be, obviously expanded just because of the market you're in. So at least him being in Cincinnati, I would assume it's going to be quieter than most markets, obviously. So I think that helps. But yeah, I obviously want a receiver. Like Amari Cooper is a perfect receiver to me because he doesn't even show any emotion, just like Julio. Like I don't like those guys don't. AJ Green was like that. Again, another Cincinnati guy. So they're just really productive and they don't do anything. They don't say anything. They don't go on social media and like tweet stuff that make no sense. So yeah, I totally agree with that as well. I think they have their own egos, but it's not something that's detriment to the team. And that's obviously the main goal, I would say.
If you're making me make a pick right now and not making me give like a cop-out answer, I would go with Jefferson, by the way.
Okay. Didn't you just say Chase would be more have a higher?
Yes, but I think Jefferson will be more consistent, and I think Jefferson will probably have a longer career. I don't know that for a fact, but I just think.
What were you gonna say?
I don't think Jefferson will have to rely on his physical dominance as much as Chase will have to. I think Jefferson has a slightly longer career. And I prefer Jefferson, I think, as a receiver over Chase, even if it's not objective, it's more subjective. But yeah.
I was gonna say, is this based on their current situations, or is this just like if you could pick your own team and like who do you want as your receiver?
This is like me picking a team. I would prefer Jefferson. I also think Jefferson will have a better career than Chase.
Okay.
But
I think if you were picking your own receiver, I think it'd be really tough. But honestly, in their current situations with what's going on, I think you'd obviously rather have Chase because even though you have Cousins in Minnesota, it's like he's not the long-term option there. So unless they you have to see what quarterback they get next, which is obviously going to be a question because as long as Cousins is there, they're going to be competitive enough to where you're not going to have a top 5 pick. Well, you already have Burrow, who already has the connection with Chase as well. So I think that would probably lean towards Chase. But if you're picking your own receiver, yeah, like I said, I think either guy is the right option if it's between those two guys. But I guess there was a couple other, game-winning field goal situations this week. A couple of the other games were kind of blowouts. I mean, the Bucks destroyed the Dolphins. The Steelers, they kind of manhandled the Broncos. It's kind of surprising, maybe not surprising, but just the Steelers have looked so bad. And even though the Broncos are kind of fraudulent 3-0, 3-1 team, I was kind of expecting them to win. Bridgewater was back for that game, coming off the concussion, so definitely surprising there. The Eagles beat the Panthers. I know you picked the Panthers. Definitely surprising. The Panthers, again, another fraudulent 3-0 team that we suspected, but to lose this game, that's a really bad loss, especially for a team that is at least in the position to look for a wild card. That was really bad. If you have something to say about that, you can. But
Not really. I think Donald just didn't have a great game. The Panthers overall didn't have a great game, but
yeah. And again, we'll see. When they get Gilmore in 2 weeks, I guess it will be. And then C-Mac is going to come back at some point. So we'll see what happens with them at that point. But even still, Titans, they destroyed the Jaguars. Jaguars 0-5. There's been some rumors about Urban Meyer possibly getting fired in the middle of the season. We'll see. I mean, you've been on it the entire time about him, probably just being a one and done. And I was maybe just not thinking about it or didn't want to think about it. But now that, just seeing how they're playing and stuff, and obviously all the off the field stuff, yeah, I will not be surprised if he is fired after this season, because it looks like they're going to go. I mean, do you think they're going to win over 2 games this year?
I mean, I'd have to look at their schedule. I could look at it right now. I don't know.
Yeah,
Over
because
2
they are
games? No,
really
I would go under 2, but I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, they're gonna win a game. Like, I would be shocked if they went 0-17. But
I would be shocked as well, because you're going to have one game where Lawrence does have an incredible game, and you just need your defense to make a couple stops. But I mean, they're just not a good football team at all. And again, this was before the season. I thought they would actually be at least decent. For the over unders, I'd pick their over. I thought they'd be decent. Again, not in a great division, but they've just looked really bad. And I think it's Meyer with all the off the field stuff, and him probably not being the perfect candidate for the position anyways. So yeah, I think for sure he gets fired after the season. But if they get blown out these next couple of games and it looks really bad, I really wouldn't be surprised if a medical situation pops up for Urban Meyer, and then he has to get fired or something. But that was that game. Pat's game, we already kind of talked about. Drew's obviously going to talk about that later. The 4 o'clock games, besides the Chargers Browns one, you had the Cardinals Niners and Bears Raiders. I mean, I guess we could talk the Bears Raiders game, just because, again, another 3-0 team that loses to the Chargers last week. Probably a closer game than the score indicated that it was, but you face the Bears this week at home, a really bad loss. That's a game you really just can't lose against the Bears. You only score 9 points. Don't even you put up 1 touchdown, but this was just not a good game from a team that, again, you could still possibly make a wild card. If you're 3-1, you win. You're 4-1, you have a good shot at it. But again, a really bad loss from the Raiders.
yeah, I'm not sure if this is a loss because the Raiders just aren't very good, or if it has to do anything with the John Gruden situation just being a really distracting thing to the rest of the locker room, especially Gruden. I mean, Gruden having to deal with something like that and going to play a game and having to be the coach, which means you're having to spend all the time game planning and everything, seems like it would be a distraction. But at the same time, Belichick dealt with Deflategate before Super Bowl 49, and they won that game. So I don't want to use that as an excuse or anything. Yeah, I mean, the Raiders just might not be very good. Carr might have just had one of those Ryan Fitzmagic type of starts to the season where he just goes off and looks like an MVP. It's just that his name isn't Ryan Fitzpatrick. Obviously, Carr is better than Fitzpatrick, but he may just fall down to earth. This team may be what we think it is, which is a 6-10 team. So yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with the Gruden situation. I mean, we don't really get into what happened, but we'll see what happens with him at the end of the season, though, because the team hasn't been, just football wise, the team obviously the last couple of years has not been that good. And they're kind of destined to end up in that 8-9, 7-10, 9-8 situation again. And then obviously with the off the field stuff, you have to see what happens. So that'll be a situation where you might see an opening at the end of the season. But we'll see. Again, he had that 10-year contract, but obviously he was never going to finish that one out anyways. But we'll see. Again, Cardinals Niners. No Garoppolo for this game. It was just announced that Lance has a knee sprain, but the Niners have a bye this week, so again, maybe we'll see if Garoppolo could play their next game. But they did lose. They're 2-3. The Cardinals were 5-0. Another team for the Cardinals where I think we both agree that we definitely like them going into the season. Them being 5-0, I don't think changes how we view them. I think we still view them as, I guess now you'd probably put them as at least the third best team, just because the Seahawks don't have Russell Wilson for who knows how long. But yeah, I think they're at least the third best team. Probably maybe the second best team, but I still have the Rams above them for sure. The Niners, we'll see about it, but yeah, this is another team that 5-0. But where do you realistically see them ending up when the season's over?
It's a super difficult question because them starting 3-0 was kind of expected. I mean, the Titans was a game that was kind of more of a toss-up, but you expect to beat the Vikings at home. You expect to beat the Jaguars. The Rams was a statement game. To beat the Rams by 17 points, huge. And then to come out the next week and beat your division rival again in the 49ers, another big win. But I don't think this wasn't a game where, like, had they come out and had they put up 37 and held the Niners to 20 or whatever, kind of like last week against the Rams, I'd be much more confident in saying this team is a real legit competitor. I want to see how they look against the Browns next week. They're traveling to Cleveland. The Browns, even though they're 3-2, have looked like a top tier team on at least paper. I want to see how they look. I want to see how the defense looks against that offense. I want to see how their offense looks against the Browns defense. If they can come out and beat the Browns and make it look like a game that they have under control the whole time, I think you're much more confident about this team, because then you're 6-0. Then after that, you get to host the Texans and you host the Packers. I think you're probably looking at 7-0, and then you kind of start to get into Packers, 49ers, Panthers might be competitive still, Seahawks. But I don't know. So to me, I don't view this team as a team that has a chance to get to the Super Bowl still. Well, I guess maybe a chance, sure, but a very small chance. I still don't view this team as the best team in the division. If everyone's healthy, I still view this team as the worst team in the division. With that being said, this was a division that I said is the best of all time, and there's a very legitimate shot all four of the teams could make the playoffs at the beginning of the year. With injuries, it's not looking like that. If Wilson's out for another 6 or 7 weeks, then that's not looking good for the Seahawks. They might as well just tank if that's the case, if they end up being like 2-7, 2-6 when Wilson comes back. But yeah, I like this Cardinals team. But I genuinely think they're closer to the Panthers than they are to the Rams. I don't think they're the Panthers. Like, I don't think they're that 7-10 team that's competitive, but I think they're closer to that. I think they're probably around that 10-7 team than they are to they're closer to 7-10 than they are to 13-4, which I think that's probably what the Rams are. So
yeah, I view the Cardinals as the fifth best team in the NFC right now. Again, yeah, the Seahawks with no Wilson, the Niners haven't looked great. I would have the Rams, Bucks, Packers, and Cowboys above them. I think most people would probably have that, even with the Cardinals technically being the best team in the NFC. But
in
yeah,
the NFL,
in the NFL. But yeah, this is like, for them, it's just, again, if they can beat the Browns next week, and then again they have the Texans, so like, if they win next week, they're going to be 7-0, which, again, that means a lot. And again, this isn't a situation like last year where the Steelers were, or were they 11-0 or whatever they were. Like, this is clearly a better team than that Steelers team was last year. But I still wouldn't put much faith into it. Again, when you're 7-0, you're going to make the playoffs at that point. It's just almost impossible to not make the playoffs at that point. But I could easily see him losing in the first round of the playoffs, and a lot's going to be on Murray's shoulders. A lot's going to be on Kingsbury's shoulders. The defense is going to have to. They played well so far, but we'll see what happens when they play a Rams or a Bucks in the playoffs. We'll see what happens when they go against a top tier offense like that, and then if their offense can even match that. Again, they have a really good offense, but a lot is on the shoulders of Murray. If he doesn't have a good game, they're just not going to win the game regardless. So, yeah, we'll see. I definitely like him, but I definitely have my doubts about him as well. And I think when the end of the season comes, they'll make the playoffs. We'll see if they still win the division or not. I think the Rams probably still will, but yeah, I could easily see him losing in the first round though.
Yeah, I could too. I guess so. That's pretty much every single game we just talked about from week 5. couple others, but pretty just irrelevant. I guess our predictions, I want to say I went 1-3-1 with the Packers game being the push game. I was right on the Texans game, but I think that was it. So yeah, that was it.
Yeah, that was it. For me, I went 3-1-1. Obviously, the Packers game was the push, and my one loss was the Browns and the Chargers. I had the Browns again. That one easily could have went my way as well. But yeah, the Bucks covered 10 points, Dallas 7, and then the Bills were plus 2.5. They covered for me. So updated records. Let's see. So you're 12-1. So you're 500. Technically. And then I was 14-6, so I'm 17-7-1. So I'm very
Wow.
confident with my picks.
I mean,
I feel very
this
confident.
is yeah, I'm not feeling great right now. Last year was I mean, listen, 12-1, that's pretty bad. I got to pick it up. I had that one week that I went like 1-4, and that really killed me. Obviously, this week doesn't help either, going 1-3-1. But I legitimately got to pick it up because if I finish under 500 on the year, I would be very disappointed. Even if I finish 500, I would still be disappointed. I'd like to finish at least like what, 6, I'd like to finish with a positive record at the very least. And right now I'm net neutral. So
yeah. So I mean, we'll see. Again, we still have so many games left.
I'm scared about that presentation because I have some takes that I know I would have to include in that. And yeah, that's not what I'm looking forward to, but I can still win this for sure. I mean, it's only 5 games. It's only 1 week if you really think about it.
Yeah. Look, if you go 4-1 1 week and I go 1-4, it completely flips. So
yeah,
I mean, that's the way you have to look at it. And I mean, yeah, we'll see. I mean, like week 6 again. Now teams are gonna have some buys, so there's gonna be some teams that aren't gonna be playing. I think that does matter a little bit. Just in terms of like you're like me of that go-to team that's just not going to be playing again. And this upcoming week, we're both taking the Cowboys Patriots game, right? We did agree on that. So let me see if there's a line for it. Right now it's -4. I'm just looking at ESPN right now. It's -4 for Dallas. So yeah, I mean, I feel confident in that line. I love that line.
so you would take Dallas?
Yeah. Why would I not take Dallas?
No, I'm just wondering. I don't know. Would I take Dallas?
I mean, we've put up 30 plus points basically every single game this year, except for the Charger game, but we won that, so it's okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to think about what I'm going to take in that. I mean, it's like scary for me to not take the same game as you, just because like if you're right, but then if I'm right, so it's we'll see, but we'll talk about that. We'll be back Thursday. Appreciate everybody who's watched to the end of this episode. Sorry that it's not out Monday. Well, I guess it technically will be out Monday, but sorry that we didn't record last night. Weather delay. The game didn't finish until very late. So if we had recorded,
It was 1 a.m. and it was still the third quarter. So I mean, like I thought when the delay happened in the halftime, I thought they were doing a Ring of Honor thing. Like that's what I thought it was, because I thought they said something about that, and then like it just never came back from halftime, and I was just like, all right, this is like getting a little ridiculous now. And then I think I looked on Twitter and they said there was like lightning and stuff. So I mean, it was still a crazy delay. It was like an hour, 15 minutes or something, or an hour or something like that.
Yeah. I stuck through the whole thing. I like watched almost all of the halftime presentation too. It was, I mean, they just had some like really boring highlights. Had they known it was going to be an hour delay, then they would have been able to have better highlights, but their highlights were literally like 2 plays of a game. Because obviously, when your halftime presentation's like 15 minutes or 10 minutes, you don't.
Yeah. And they've already done the highlights 2 times over from pregame. So it's
yeah. But yeah, I mean, we got to see a lot of Drew Brees, which I thought was interesting. Because we haven't really seen like too much of Drew Brees. I mean, we've seen a little bit, but I think that was probably a lot of people's like first time getting to see more than like a 5-minute little bite of Drew Brees.
Yeah. How was it? I didn't watch the whole halftime, but
he was all right. I didn't think he was anything special though. Like he he didn't really give it too much insane input. They didn't talk about the Saints game that much, which I thought was interesting because you have Drew Brees there. But yeah, I thought he was all right. I mean, it's tough for me to give like some super in-depth take on what he did right and wrong. He didn't do anything like right or wrong necessarily. He was just all right. He wasn't amazing. If like Tony Romo's start to his like broadcasting career was a 10 out of 10, because obviously he's been good at it ever since the start, essentially. I think Brees is looking at like a 6 out of 10. He was all right. He gave some good insight on some stuff, but he wasn't anything like, wow, like he was really meant for TV. I don't think he's like somebody that's like, wow, he's clearly meant for TV. So, but I think he can work on it. I think he can be great. So if he's the guy that does replace Collinsworth down the line, then I think he can work up to it. But I don't think he would have been, if he were to replace Collinsworth this season or something, let's just say, I don't think he would have been nearly as good as somebody like Brees. So, or sorry, somebody like Romo.
Yeah. I think the right move, honestly, for like a player transitioning straight from NFL to booth is not go to the booth, but like a studio guy like him. Or if you're doing the booth, just don't go on like straight to Sunday night or straight to Monday night. And again, that's what they want. I mean, that's the reason why they want those guys. But I mean, Romo's like a 1 out of a million where it works like perfectly as soon as it happens. You know, like Witten, it didn't really work. I mean, Brees, they put him in the studio for a reason. I know Collinsworth was there, but if they wanted to replace Collinsworth with Brees, they would have done it. They clearly just it just wasn't right. So I think it's the right move to do something like that. And then we'll see, like maybe like a Peyton Manning or an Eli Manning. I know they have the Manning thing, but they'll probably be in a booth at some point. I mean, someone's going to pay him like $20 million to do it. So you might as well just accept all that money. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Like when Brady retires, we'll see what he does. I don't think he's not going to go in the booth, but just old veterans like that. Like I'm very interested to see how that plays out. Because somebody, I don't know how many athletes you would have as like more name recognized. Like who's more famous than Drew Brees that would retire soon? I don't know. Maybe it's just Brady, but it's going to be interesting to see which ex NFL players come in and take some jobs from some guys who aren't necessarily.
Yeah, I was going to say one thing baseball wise, not even the games or anything, even though, I mean, the Red Sox could clinch tonight. There's a lot of stuff happening, but just that same thing. Adam Wainwright, he was on the broadcast for the White Sox Astros games last night. I mean, he's still pitching in the MLB. So, I mean, that's like another kind of situation, even though it's baseball. Baseball is easier because it's just so much slower. And you can kind of talk it whenever you want. But yeah, I mean, that's another situation where, I mean, he's already doing booth work while he's still playing. I mean, he pitched, a week and a half ago in the wild card game. So.
Yeah. Anyways, that's officially it. We'll be back Thursday. Stay tuned on the Clips channel for me and Brandon's episodes that we do on our teams. At some point, I think after this week, we'll do one of those things on the Clips channel together, talk about that game. That'll be interesting, as well as stay tuned for MLB stuff because we could be seeing some upsets early on. We arguably already have. So that'll be interesting. Stay tuned. Both this channel, Clip channel, social media, is everything in the description. We'll be back Thursday. Goodbye.